Howdy, hey people. Welcome to East 10. Um, just thought I'd make a little video explaining like these release lines and the skills and just the overall RPG mechanics that are in the game and stuff, right? This is my first East game. Never played one beforehand. Was always one of those games that looked good to me, but never wanted to invest in it, right? Never wanted to commit to buying the game because I just wasn't too sure. I'm very picky about the stuff that I play, so that's a big part of it as well. But anyways, yeah, I just want to get into this and try to have a comprehensive guide on all the different mechanics and how to do certain things and what certain things mean and everything like that. I don't have a whole lot of bad things to say about this game. I guess the one thing that I wish I knew how to do, there, or I wish was accessible for me to be able to see, was what all this stuff does. Um, Obviously a lot of it is pretty self-explanatory. Strength is how hard you hit. Defense is how much damage you mitigate. I don't really know what luck does. If I had to take a wild guess at it, I would imagine that's something to do with crit, and maybe item pickups and stuff like that. But I'm not entirely sure about that. But yeah, so equipment to start out with is pretty cookie cutter. Um, you equip your sword, equip your armor, and then as so long as you're able to go and get these blessed paper scraps, which are few and far between, you'll be able to have more slots to equip accessories and stuff on. And all this stuff does stuff, so you just equip it how you need to equip it, upgrade it as you see fit, as the need arises, that kind of stuff. Also got cosmetics down here. I'm pretty sure there's like some microtransactions that you can pay for if you really worried about the drip of your character. Um, you can go and pay for that kind of stuff. But for me, I got this somewhere. I don't even know where I got this. It might have just been given to me via story or something like that. But yeah, I mean, equipment stuff is pretty, it's pretty self-explanatory. There's not much to really go over here. Um, going to skills. Skills again, very cookie cutter. It's very basic stuff. You've seen this in a million different RPGs. You have four slots here, and you equip them as you need to equip them. The big thing I wanted to get to was like there are certain skills that you can only obtain via mastery. So like Raid Slash, for instance, has 60% mastery that I've gotten so far. Um, if I wanted to get Assault Raid, I would have to get the skill mastery of Raid Slash to 100%, right? So, and the only reason that I point this out is because I'm kind of in this habit right now where I'm just using duo mode a lot because I just like duo mode. Like I like the idea of duo mode. It's not something that I've seen in a game very much. Um, and if I have seen it, I don't remember seeing it. But it's just a really cool mechanic to me. I like it a lot. But I'm kind of in this phase right now where I'm using dual mode like almost exclusively, right? And so because I'm using dual mode exclusively, I'm not backing out of it and using the individual skills that the two characters have. Um, if I was, I imagine I would have assault rate by now, but I'm not. So there's definitely a balance that you have to strike between using the characters individually and then going into duo mode. There's obviously there is a place for duo mode. It's the only place where you can guard. It's the only place where you can use the dual attacks at the same time. It's the only place where you can use the exclusive duo skills. So there's definitely a place for it, but there's definitely got to be a balance in using the three. I like to look at it as a trinity of sorts. You have Adol individually, Karja individually, and then you have them both in the duo mode. Um, Being able to use those three and fluidity and in continuity with each other makes the combat really great. Like it's really fun to do combat when you have a good sense of how the fluidity of it is supposed to be. And seeing as how this is the main gameplay loop in the game, um, it just begs attention that you understand that and get that right. But other than that, you have stuff like Fallen Edge, for instance, right? Now, I've only got 8% mastery in that, but it does have some traits to it. There are skills that will have traits to them. So this has a slam trait, and it has invincibility upon activation. So if you're in midair, for instance, let's talk about the slam. If you're in midair and you need to get there quickly, you can use Falling Edge and just fall straight to the ground and do damage as you're doing so. But if you're getting beat up, or if an enemy is coming towards you and you don't have enough time to guard, you can use Fallen Edge to have a little bit of startup invincibility to be able to go through that move and still do damage, right? So that's also something that you have to pay attention to, as well as the strength of the move and the break of the move. Some moves will have more break than strength, and some moves will have more strength than break, right? So it's just about using the skill that applies to the current situation. You might be going up against a boss that's got, all that armor across his health bar. Well, you need to be using skills that have break. And then once that's broken off, then you use your skills that got a lot of strength and you do a bunch of damage to them, so that's definitely stuff to keep in mind. Then you have stuff like Aura Edge, which has knockback. So if you've got an enemy that's really on you, or you've got to deal with like crowd control or something like that, use Aura Edge and you knock them back. Give yourself a little bit of room to breathe so that you can, reset and assess the situation and go back into doing what you have to do. Sounds real basic, sounds real elementary, but these are things that matter, because in the heat of battle, things might just pop up, especially going up into new areas and fighting new enemies. You have to adapt to these different things, and knowing what your abilities can do beforehand will make your combat experience that much more efficient, that much more easy, and that much more fun. Actually, you'll get a little bit more, at least for me, you get a little bit more accomplishment knowing that you use the right thing to be able to have a bigger advantage over the enemies that you're fighting, right? So yeah, definitely like how they did the skill stuff in this game. It's really good. So let's go to the release line. The release lines took me a little bit to understand. And they took me a while to understand because I was not necessarily looking at the nodes that I was putting in. I was looking at these little white dashes that are going through these lines. Because to me, it reminded me of something akin to how Final Fantasy X-2 did the dress spheres, right? That's kind of what I was thinking of when I saw it. I thought that maybe you wanted to put nodes in a certain order so that you would gain the effects or the traits or whatever of the nodes in the specific grid. And that's not too far from the truth, but there's a little bit more to it than that. So let's do it like this. Let me just reset all this so we can make a point of it, right? So I'll just do this one and this one. I'm at depth 2. I'm almost at depth 3. Through context clues and just using inference, like that's the only way that I can make this assumption. But I'm going to assume that it goes down to at least depth 5. And the reason that I say that is because when you go into this and you look at your stuff here, there's 5 activation depths. So that's just inference on my part. I could be wrong, I could be right, not sure. That's not the point. The point is, how do we use this stuff? What does this activation depth thing mean? And how and to what extent can I exploit it? That's what you're asking. Okay, so we'll start like this. Let's say we're going to start here at the top of the grid. The top of the grid is the most important. It's the most important because whatever is at the top of this grid, in depth 1 specifically, whatever is at the top of this grid is going to be able to use all 5 of the depths. It's gonna be able, if you place your nodes correctly, it's going to be able to be maxed out. Whereas some of these other ones, most of these other ones will not be able to be maxed out. Now, there definitely is an argument to be had that more than one will be able to be maxed out. I believe that is the case for sure. But I don't think more than 2 will be able to. And here's why I say that. Let's put this on here. Okay, so now we've got Warrior's Aptitude. It increases our damage infliction by 1%. Okay, now let's assume that we want him to be the warrior. And so we just start putting a grip of these red nodes in there, right? Well, you notice that these two are the same. Well, this is a plus and this is a regular, but they're the type that they are is the same. This is just an upgraded version of this, right? When you go here, you notice that even though there's two of the same type, I still have an activation in all three of these different things. That's because the activation depth is not based on how many nodes you have in a specific grid. It's based on how many nodes you have at specific depths, right? So, for instance, let's say I took this one out and just put a blue one here, and then let's say I just put a yellow one here. Okay, so now, and let me, yeah, so those aren't going to be activated. Yeah, so now I've got Warrior's Aptitude, I've got Mana Blade, I've got Guardian's Aptitude, and I've got Tactician's Aptitude. All these things now have 1 on their activation depth, right? So now, and we have no more space. We're done. We're done with depth 1 for adult. Now we go down to depth 2. Let's remove these as well. Now we're going to start all over again at the top. The top node is the most important node, because if I go to depth 2 and go to the top node and I put down the Sword Seal Plus, that's going to give me another depth in Warrior's Aptitude. So rule of thumb, if you want these activation depths to go up, you have to have the same type of nodes per depth. And so, like I said, if I'm thinking about this correctly and inference is on my side here, there should be 5 depths. And provided I have a sword seal of some kind, whether it's a regular or a plus or a +2 or however far along the line it goes, I should be able to max out Warrior's Aptitude and in theory have +5% added to my damage infliction. And so because of that, that's kind of how your build variety goes. So like this one, I'll put a regular shield seal here, and I'll put, let's see what else we got here. I don't have one of those. Let's see, strong arm. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'll just leave that be for right now. But so now I got, I put another shield in depth 2, so now I've got 2 in Guardian's Aptitude. So it doesn't matter where you put it in the next depth, as long as it's in a node somewhere in the next depth. Because as soon as I'm able to go to depth 3, I'm going to put another shield in there somewhere, and that'll make it to where Guardian's Aptitude is a +3. Warrior's Aptitude is a +3. So on and so forth. Now there's limits to this, obviously, as like I've said. I think there's only 5 depths. So since there's only going to be 5 depths, it's really going to be incumbent upon the user to determine, okay, what am I going to use the most that is going to enhance my playstyle, right? So for instance, to give you an idea of how a build might work, let's say I'm using adult, and let's say I don't have the nodes to be able to demonstrate this on screen, but it's just a little theory crafting right now. Let's say I want him to be able to do a lot of damage, a lot of regular physical damage, and I want him to do crits. I want him to be a crit machine, is what I want, because all I want from him is just pure damage output, right? So in theory, I would have this maxed out, Warrior's Aptitude maxed out. I would have Mercy to the Deathless maxed out. I would then have Critical Edge. This might be able to be maxed out, but I don't think that it could be maxed out. I think it's really dependent on how many nodes you start with up here, right? I really do. So if I'm thinking about it right, and this is all just theory crafting, you can go find this out for yourself and just test what I'm saying here. But in my mind, it very well may be possible to get 3 or maybe 4 at 5 at +5. It very well may be able to. Now, maybe not, because you go down to depth 2 and there's only 3 here. So if I put the same ones here, I wouldn't be able to do that because there's only 3. So there's still going to have to be some kind of primary, secondary, and tertiary prioritization of these nodes and what you put into these nodes. So for Adol, I could do red nodes if I wanted to just worry about straight damage. But then, I could pepper in some yellow. I could pepper in some yellow so that I have more critical damage when I actually do crits. But if I wanted a higher crit rate, I would still have to worry about the reds. So I would have to have whatever seal gives you critical edge. I would have to have an abundance of those as well. Same idea for like Karja. Like if you wanted Karja to be a tank, you just outfit her with a bunch of blue nodes. And then let's say you wanted her to be something akin to a low health build, bloodied build, or something of that nature. Well, then you would build her out like this, or her damage mitigation with Guardian's Aptitude, Defiance to the Deathless, reduce her damage taken from Grieger. And then, however you get these, I'm not sure how you get these yet, you would do something like Dark or Double-Edged Sword, Quarter Rat's Wisdom, and Hungry Beast, right? So that way, when she's at low health, she can do a grip of damage, and she still has enough vitality and enough defense to be able to tank shots even at low health, right? That's just kind of one way of thinking of it. That's just something that I thought of off the top of my head. Maybe issues with that, but that's just, theory crafting. That's all that is. It's theory crafting. So, yeah, that's kind of the long and the short of it, of like how this really works. Another thing is that, like I said, you can go in here and you can make seals. You can make as many of these as you need to make. There's also plus versions that you'll end up getting eventually, where you'll have to have, in this case, you'll have to have 3 regular sword seals to get a sword seal plus. These are going to eventually replace these, and I'm certain that if there's something past this, which I fully expect that there will be, you'll be just making these to get whatever comes after it and replacing them on the release line grid as such, right? So you can also split these as you need to. So you can get your crystal shards if you really need crystal shards, and the red drops and the blue drops and yellow drops and stuff specifically. If you need to have more of these and you just have an excess of a specific kind of seal, you can split it, get the blue drop, make what you need to make, and go about your merry business and fill out your nodes and stuff as you need to. So yeah, this is it's a cool game. I like it a lot. There's not a whole lot, like I said, that I have to complain about when it comes to this game. I mean, I like everything in terms of the combat, and in terms, even the story. I like the story. The story's cool. I'm big into Vikings, and this has some very Norse and Viking undertones and stuff implanted into it, which I can fully appreciate. The music is really good, the combat's good, exploration is fine. I really enjoy it. It's, like I said, my first Ys game. I don't know if the other games do it like this, but if it's anything similar to this, then I'll probably end up playing those games at a certain point in my life as well. So yeah, this was just me trying to give you the heads up of what all this stuff is and what it does and how to use it properly and things to think about. There's a ton of build variety in this. Oh, one more thing that I did not mention. So let's go to her side, and let's go. Here we go. So you notice that Guardian's Aptitude is lit up, but in the second slot. That's why I say that you're not going to be able to max all these out. It's not going to be possible. It's not going to be possible because this is activated because it's only activated in the second depth. And seeing as how there's only a limited amount of space in the first depth, then that means that going all the way down to 5 is not going to be viable for everything, right? So it very well may be viable for, like I said, if I'm thinking about it correctly, for 3 skills for her. So if there are 3 different skills that she has put in here, then whatever 3 is put in here, those will be able to go to max, but anything coming afterwards will not, because it has no position up here in the first depth. So it's about prioritizing in this first depth. This first depth is really the most important one, because these are the skills that you said, hey, this is what's going to be maxed out. I'm going to max these out no matter what. And then everything that comes after it has more of a secondary prioritization. Everything that comes after it in the third depth is going to have a tertiary prioritization, and the fourth, so on. And it's just going to get less and less and less. So by the time you're done, if you're doing it how I believe you're supposed to do it, it should read something like, let's say you put all these, right? Let's say you just gilded her out with a bunch of blue, right? Just a bunch of blue. Let's do all the blue that we can. You see here now that she's got 2 in Guardian Aptitude, 2 in Mana Shield, 1 in Frost Bracers. Now, the Frost Bracers one, I think, is this one, if I'm right. Let's get rid of that. Okay, yeah, but you also notice that if nothing's at the top, that's also a good point. If nothing's at the top of a grid, these don't matter. These don't matter. This top one gives life to everything else. That's what these lines, these little white dashes that are going through indicate. Everything that's activated down here comes from what's activated up here. So if you don't have anything in a top node, it's not going to matter what you have in bottom nodes or side nodes, because this is what activates the entire grid. So let's see. Nope, not that. Put that, and then let's get rid of that. I don't know what Frost Bracers is. I don't know. Maybe that's just because I have 3 in here. Yeah, let's get rid of that, and then I'll put this in there. Yeah, so I'll gain Frost Bracers just because I have 3 of the same type. Now you can definitely do this up to a point, but by the end of the game, or even by the middle of the game, you don't want to have entire grids that just have one thing, because if you're sufficient in one thing, you're going to be deficient in something else. And at the same time, you don't want to homogenize, because a jack of all trades is a master of none. It's never a good idea generally to homogenize in RPGs, just because you want to excel in something, at least one thing, hopefully 2 things, right? So if I'm looking at this correctly, then that means the further down this road that I go, that might go up to 5, but this might have to end at 4. This might have to end at 3. This might have to end at 2. This might have to end at 1. Just because the further down you go, you're not going to be able to have how am I trying to say this? Let's see, like with the Liar Seal, for instance. Let's go with that. You see, both of these are at 2, right? Both of these are like, they have one lit up, so you're getting the perk, I guess, for it. But if I were to continue using these 2 all the way down, I would only be able to get it to +4, and that's because there's no Chalice Seal or no Liar Seal in the first grid. So because there's not any in the first grid, I'm not getting whatever bonus I would get from having it in the first grid. So the further down you go, so like say I put a Chalice Seal or a Liar Seal in depth 3 without having any in depth 2 or depth 1. Well, I'm not going to get the bonus for that. And there's going to be a point in time where what you've prioritized in these grids is going to be more important than what you place down in further depths. So not everything that you place going down is going to have the same amount of strength as what you place higher up in the grid. So it's pretty much just prioritize the first depth, the first and second depth. Prioritize these depths, because going forward, anything that goes into these nodes from depth 3 onward, they're going to be weaker. And even in depth 2, if it wasn't in depth 1, like how the Chalice and the Liar Seal are, then you'll still get the bonus, but you won't be able to max it out, is my point. You just won't be able to max it out. So the things that you want to max out, prioritize up here. If you prioritize them up here and you just keep going down the grid as you normally would, they will eventually get maxed out. But as for things that were placed in depth 2 and below, those things will not be able to be maxed out because they have no place in these grids up here. Okay, that's and so that kind of just that gives you a sense of what the build variety is like in this game, because there's 4 different categories and there's 5 different abilities that you can have in each of those. So 20 per character gives you a pretty decent amount of options to pick and choose from how you want to play given your play style, right? And I enjoy that a lot as well. And don't forget, these seals can be plus. They can be upgraded, so you're not just going to be worrying about regular seals. Eventually, you're only going to be using plus seals. Eventually, after that, depending on how they do it, you're only going to be using plus or plus 2s type seals, right? And your grid's going to be filled out with that kind of stuff, just to further and bolster you and amplify what it is that you can do, whether that's attack power or break or vitality or whatever. So it's always important to make sure that you grasp all these different things and put them together in a way that complements your playstyle. Anyway, that was pretty much all that I had to say on the matter. I like the game a lot. I'm looking forward to going into it and playing it more and advancing in the storyline and just seeing what other surprises they have in store. Because like I said, I'm only on chapter 3. I'm not very far in right now. But from what I have gathered so far, the game has depth. It's got built variety. The RPG mechanics are there. The combat is there. The story is definitely there, I think. I love the graphical fidelity. The performance is fine. I don't have any stutters or jutters or anything crazy going on screen, any tearing, anything crazy. It's a good game. And I'm glad that it was my introduction to the East series, because now it's made me curious. What are the other games like? Are there mechanics that were put in other games that are specific to those games? And if there are, what are they? That sounds interesting to me. So yeah, I fully encourage anybody who's interested in this game, who was ever interested in this game, to try the demo at first, because it was the demo that did the justice for me. But try the demo first, and if you enjoy the demo, then by all means, grab this game. This game is good. If you need to wait for a sale, even better, because this game is worth it at $60. It will be more than worth it at $45, $40, $35, $30. It will be worth it no matter what price point that you get it. And I think you'll have a lot of fun if you like these kinds of story-driven RPGs, right? So, with that, I hope this was informative. I hope you learned something. I hope it clarified some things for you. And I hope you had a good time. So yeah, with that, I'm out of here. Peace out.